Hi, Aubrey. I am so happy about today's vocabulary episode.
No, it's going to be really fun. Honestly, I'm kind of feeling old these days. Like, I
Oh,
am
no,
up
you're
all night.
not.
I wake up at like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m.
Oh
and
my
I'm just
gosh.
awake. So then I'm like puttering around the house, getting things done in the middle of the night. Like an old person, I feel like I'm
Okay,
there.
if you use the word puttering, then you're
You are
probably
old.
old.
Accurate.
Putter is a great verb. Putter is okay, here, imagine this, guys. Okay, I'm going to describe this to you. So there is like let's say like an 80-year-old man. He's wearing slippers and he's shuffling very slowly around his home and he's not quite sure what he should be doing, but he wants to be doing something. So he keeps like shuffling around the home and he picks things up every once in a while and maybe he looks at the first page of a book and puts it down and then he'll like grab one fork and wash it. That's puttering.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you need to because I can't. I'm laughing so hard at your description of the verb putter. And it's so accurate. It's very specific to the elderly, but we'll say it to like poke fun at ourselves, if like we
Totally.
just feel
Yeah.
tired and we feel like we're whatever, be like, I'm just puttering around the house and not really getting a lot done.
Oh my God. We didn't even plan on teaching you that word.
No,
That's a bonus
bonus.
word. Oh my gosh. So much great vocab today. So, guys, the reason why this is important for you on your next IELTS exam is because you could be asked about ages, social welfare, taking care of the elderly, cultural attitudes towards aging. There are so many possible topics that age
Yes.
vocabulary comes up. But
Right?
most
Health,
common,
memory. Yes, for
right?
sure.
Totally. I think most commonly though, writing task one, right? Because there's
Two.
often
Writing task one.
questions. No, writing task one
Oh.
because there's a lot of graphs that compare
Oh,
ages,
yes,
and
you're
a lot of
right.
students lack the vocab to be flexible there.
For sure, that's true. I have seen a lot of IELTS practice tests with graphs about the elderly comparing ages, but task two as well, for sure. All those topics you
Totally.
mentioned, you have to be ready with topic specific vocabulary. And this topic is especially tricky because if your IELTS examiner is a little bit elderly, there are
I
words you can use that are
know.
very rude and disrespectful. You don't want to do that.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
That is a very good point. Okay, let's get into this vocab, guys. And don't worry, we'll tell you if something is appropriate or offensive. I think all the stuff today is great, and you could say it on the test. But if you want to know more about maybe some impolite ways to describe the elderly, check out a very ancient episode of IELTS Energy
Nice.
with
I
me
like
and
what you did
Lindsay.
there.
Episode 784 has more of that.
Yes, exactly. We talk about impolite versus polite. Lots of ways to be respectful, be polite. But the first one we're going to share here, I'm curious to get your take on it, Jessica, because I do say this. So the word is biddy, Biddy,
Mhm.
and I say it jokingly. Like if someone's really grumpy and crotchety and old, especially a lady, but maybe
Yeah.
you're going to push back and say, this is mean, you shouldn't say this. I'll be like, that old biddy. And it's
Yeah, it
probably
really
not
does.
very nice.
It's not unless you're joking with a friend, right?
Yes, so
So an
not on
old,
IELTS. We
yeah.
don't use that on IELTS.
But so this could be, it's definitely slang. It's definitely
Yes.
informal. But guys, I think you can use it on the speaking exam only if you are lovingly speaking about maybe your grandma or another old lady, and teasing a little bit. Or if you want to say that they're not this, that they're something else. So for example,
Yes.
if you have like a spry, vibrant grandma who's just like up at 4 a.m. and walking a marathon or whatever, and she's always happy and joyful, then you could say, my grandma is the best. She is definitely not one of those old biddies with 10 cats and yelling at the kids. Like, that's not her. My grandma is the best.
That's
So,
a really good point to say they're not like that, right? Or you
yeah.
could definitely say it sort of jokingly about yourself. Be like, sometimes I'm a bit of an old biddy.
Sometimes I feel like an old biddy.
Yes.
Totally, like sore and cranky. So it really is like an old attitude of crankiness, right?
Definitely, right? But be careful with this because there is another word spelled Bitty that sounds exactly the same, bitty.
Mhm.
You've probably heard someone say a little bitty bit, which is a
Or
great
itty
slang,
bitty.
or itty bitty, a slang terms for something being very small. And if you ever write it, it would be Bitty.
Nice. Good teaching point there, Aubrey. Oh, okay. So there are two phrases here that we're going to teach you that describe the older phase of one's life, right? So we could look at it very positively with these phrases. So you could say in one's golden years. I think this sort of has the connotation of like being near death, though. Like that's like in the twilight of one's life,
Golden years. Interesting. I
you
feel like I
know?
just say it for like post retirement when you can travel and your life is like
That's,
nice,
yeah,
right?
that's how I think it
But
is
definitely
usually
older.
used
You have
for
to be
sure.
retired to be in your golden years.
Exactly. So one's golden years, your golden years, my golden years, you're retired, you are living the dream, right? You could do whatever you want. You're just, the kids are out of the house and you're just
Yeah.
free as a bird. So
But
that's
you
one's golden
certainly
years.
don't have to be retired to use this on IELTS, right? You can say, I can't wait for my golden years when I can
Exactly.
be free to do, and then think of all the details you could share of all the things you're going to do in your golden years.
Or like describing how government should take care of the
Ooh,
elderly, right? Like
yes.
government assistance and welfare, and be like, I firmly believe that all retired people should be allowed to enjoy their golden years and be supported to whatever they, to the extent needed after having worked their whole life, right? The
Yes,
elderly
good
should be
point.
supported. Yeah.
For sure. And then there's a similar one, the prime of one's life. So again, really, I think of post retirement when you have the freedom to do what you want. But we do also use this just for like middle years or even teenagers. I'd be like, she's in the prime of her life if she's having a great time, living a good life. So this is pretty flexible, really. It depends on context.
Exactly, exactly. I was just going to say that. It's all
Yeah,
about context, guys. It's about the opinion you're trying to convey. So,
totally.
the prime of one's life is just like the best of your life, right? It could be appearance, energy, intelligence. It could be any factor, right? Your working life, your whatever. So if you want to say like, I really think the prime of my life is going to be after I retire, right? Then I'll get
Yeah.
to travel, whatever. So yeah, it is a very flexible phrase, but I wanted to offer that as an option.
Yes, there is a very similar phrase that's trending. I hear it all the time to say you're living your best life. Be like, he's living his best life. She's living
I
her best
know.
life. It just means, like, I'll say this about my kids when they're like naked, eating chips on the couch, watching TV. And I'm like, okay, he's just living his best life over there.
Oh, yes. That sound I would do that. That sounds
Sign me up.
very comfortable.
But you could totally use this on IELTS, right? And I think the examiner would be impressed that you like know about this pretty trendy expression that it's not really idiomatic. It's sort of obvious what you mean, but
That's
it
true.
just means,
Yeah.
yeah,
It is
you're
very
living a good
common
life.
these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. I'm almost sick of it, to be honest, because it's like
That's
it's
why you're giving me
not
the stink eye. Another reason to watch YouTube. You kind of give me a little bit of stink eye when I brought that up. I
because
love
like
it.
I'm so
I'm not sick
tired of
of it.
people saying that because it's so inauthentic these days. Because it's just like everyone is saying it, like hashtag living my best life. I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
no, you're not. Like, stop telling me that.
You're
Okay,
broke and living with your parents,
I
so let's
know.
not. It's more
Just
appropriate for my
stop.
son,
I
who
know.
gets to just do what he wants.
Totally. Like that is true. Okay. Let's get to the rest of this vocab. So, describing like the specific ages, right, of people in the golden years of their life. The elderly, right? That's a noun, the elderly. Or senior citizens is another great synonym for elderly. Okay. Now, in questions where it's like, what to do with old people? That's a simplification, but that, basically that's what IELTS asks you a lot. So
Yeah.
there's a number of options besides the kids taking care of their parents. So where do the elderly go, Aubrey?
Right. So great vocab for this assisted living, which is, a building where there are nurses who help them all day, right? Retirement homes, again, a place where someone who is elderly would go and be with other people who are elderly and maybe they're still quite active. There isn't necessarily a nurse there all the time. And then nursing homes, again, is focused a little bit more on medical care for
Yeah.
someone who is in need of quite a bit of medical care. So the thing here is you don't want to repeat vocabulary. You can't say retirement home over and over and over. You need to know
Exactly.
more vocabulary to use these parallel expressions.
And they're also slightly different in terms
True.
of the level of care and the level of illness, right? So I would say like the least helped, right? Where it's just like older people get together and there's like golf and crafting and like activities and stuff. Like that's what I think of as like a retirement home. Like you're
For
not
sure.
necessarily sick, right? Like
Right.
it's just a place to stay. So that's the least amount of assistance. And then assisted living is like you still have a lot of autonomy or personal freedom, but there's a more availability of a medical staff. And then nursing homes are really for the elderly who are already declining in health and need more care.
Yes, and then beyond that, hospice. We don't have to get in there a lot, but then after,
Right.
like when they're where they're really needing a
They're
lot of
really
medical
on their way
care,
out.
that's
Yeah.
hospice. Yeah, interesting. So yeah,
Woof.
you're right. These topics come up all the time on IELTS. Keep in mind, you can't just use these interchangeably, like you said, Jessica. You couldn't be talking about retirement homes and then say these assisted living centers, right? They do have enough of a
They have
different
meanings.
meaning that
Yeah.
you would instead need to, use a pronoun, say these centers, these facilities, to make sure you're
Totally.
actually continuing to talk about the same type of place.
Yeah, that's a good point. And even like a broader pronoun reference if you're running out of vocab, like you said, like these facilities, and we could even take that broader and be like this idea or these
Yes.
options, right? That could refer to a lot of things. And
And the
guys,
examiner
remember,
is looking
yeah.
for you to do
Yes.
that, right? They're
I was just
looking for
gonna
you to
say
use those
that.
pronouns. Yes. I took the words right out of your mouth.
Aubrey,
We're on the
great
level.
minds think alike, man. Okay, guys, I hope you wrote down today's vocab. There's a lot of great band nine vocab today. And I think we've done a good job of convincing you that these topics come up a lot on IELTS. So definitely practice using today's vocab so you remember it on test day. And if you want to be completely prepared for your IELTS exam, check out our online course, 3 Keys IELTS, allearsenglish.com/KEYS. Guys, remember, it is guaranteed to increase your score. Okay, like that alone should make you go check it out. So go to allearsenglish.com/KEYS.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. This was really fun. I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye, Aubrey.
Bye.